After I did my first batch of Fermenting Crocks, I realized that there was something that was very good. That's actually surprising to me. I didn't realize. But there are also some things that are not so good that I want to improve. So in this video, I will talk a little bit about that and show you how I'm improving the Fermenting Crocks for this second batch. So welcome. One of the problems I had with the first batch is the obvious thing that some of the lids actually glued to the rim. And this one, to remove it, I had to knock it a little bit, and I knocked off just a little bit. It's okay, I will use this myself and not resell it, so it will work, but of course it's not perfect. There are two reasons for this. One of them is that the curve on the lid was too shallow. It actually have to get a little more vertical on the side, and then you can have a shallow bottom of it, so that it better fits the groove, the water seal. So that's one thing. In some of the other pots, like this one, let me just take it. In this one, it actually fits perfectly, and if you see here, it got a little piece of vertical part, very little, but enough to fit into the groove and not glue itself when you glaze fire it. The other thing is that, and this also you can see it's actually better on this one. I did apply wax before I glazed it because it's easier to remove the glaze. But on some of them, I didn't wax all the way to the top. So there was a little bit of glaze on the top here. And as the lid slightly touched that part of it, it kind of glued just a little bit, but enough to be annoying and the risk of cracking. So what I found is that this one I didn't do. I actually removed the glaze on the top as well. So it's only go up to the side here. So in the next one, I will make sure that I wax all the way to the top of the inner rim. So that way it won't have that problem. It's usually not on the outside that it touches. So you can actually take the glaze all the way up to the top of the rim, because these are the way I make the lids. As you can see, they don't actually touch out here. Which also means, this is the third thing, that I can actually, if you use a glaze like I do that doesn't run, you can see this one, that doesn't run at all, then you can actually put the glaze even further down than what I did here. And because what I like is that it actually hides, so that when the lid is on, it looks like it's completely glazed. So there was a few things about the lids that I will do different. The other thing is, I mean, you can always discuss the design, how tall they're going to be, or how flat, how much they're going to level with the rim and whatever. It's a matter of taste. But one thing I realized with the lid, there was not a design decision I made, but a surprise to me nevertheless, in a nice way. When you after you ferment, or the fermenting is done, and you want to taste whatever you did, I found out that the lid actually works perfectly as a ball, because of the design of the lid, where you have this flat surface on the top. That is so nice. Then you can take out something and you can eat it from your lid ball. And that's actually a good thing, because I was considering maybe instead of this design of the lid making a knob type of design, but then you wouldn't be able to use it as a ball. So I like that a lot. One of the other things that I didn't do on these crocks is I didn't put handles on. And I was thinking, well, anyway, you need to grab it with both hands and move it. But what I found is that because I'm using this glaze and it's very shiny and slippery in a way almost, it's actually a little bit inconvenient to lift them, and especially if you have them filled up, they can be quite heavy. So for the new batch, and this one has not been bisqued yet, so I have to be a little bit careful, I put these little handles, and I mean, you can grab them here. I'm not going to do that now because it's not bisqued, but you can also like support your hands beneath them. And I mean, I think it's really difficult to make really nice looking handles. I think these ones turned out okay. I'll try some different designs, but I think this one works. Another thing I did on this batch is that for some of the pots, not so much this one, let me see. No, it's actually, I don't have any of them, but some of them, the groove, let me just move this. It's a little sensitive, as you know. But on some of them, the groove down here was actually rounded. And I was thinking, that's okay, because the lid is sort of rounded as well. But I found that it's actually better if the bottom is flat and the walls are pretty flat. So what I do now with the new pots is that after it gets to leather hard, I will actually use a trimming tool down here and make sure that I have perfect walls and perfect floor, because that will make the lid sit a lot better. So let me show you what I'm working on now. So far I made 5 new crocks, and as I mentioned, I only put handles on some of them. In this batch it's only 2 of them, because I think it's difficult to make the handles. Anyway, I'll see how they turn out before I make any more with handles. I also made a smaller one, and that was actually a request from my father, because he needs to ferment some chilies. He grows chilies, and he's not gonna make 3 liters of chili, so he wanted a smaller one. And that's a good point too, because I mean, you need a fermenting crock that have the size of what you need to ferment. I'm trying to make them bigger. I think it's a little difficult to make this shape big enough, so I will try with some bigger lumps of clay, because some people want to ferment cabbage, and when you do that you often ferment a lot. So these ones are about, the big one here is a little more than 3 liters, a little less than a gallon. And I want to do maybe 1.5 gallons, so 5 liters or something. That would be a good goal for me. So now I need to move on and do the lids. Before I make the lids, there's one more thing that I want to mention. As I said, you can use these lids as a bowl, which is really nice. I want to keep that. But this bowl, this lid is good. It's easy to grab. But this one, I kind of made it too flat. There's too little to grab onto. I mean, you can still grab it, but it doesn't feel so easy to grab. So I want to make sure that I leave enough clay here to make it at least this big, maybe even a little bit bigger, so you have a nice grab. So let's do the lids. The first thing I do is measure the size of the lid, and I want it to be as wide as possible, but not too wide to actually fit. So I think this is going to be okay. I'm going to use this when we throw the lid. Just like the first lids I made, I'm going to use too much clay. This is probably around 1 pound, maybe a little bit more, because I'm going to trim off a lot of it at the top to make that handle, or knob, whatever you will call it. In this video, I'm not going to show you how I throw the actual crocks. I did that in the last video, the first video. So there's a link to it somewhere here if you want to see how I did that. But because we're going to do the lids a little bit different, I want to show you that. So, and now I want to keep enough clay down here for the knob. So I mean, we are throwing it upside down, so you have to think in reverse. So I'm not gonna go very deep here, because we want all that space for the knob. And now I want to see, because it's always easier to expand it. It can be very difficult to make it smaller. So yeah, this is actually not too bad. So we're just around the right size. So now we're gonna make sure that we make it thin enough. And this is where the first change come in, because we want to make this, the wall, a little more straight vertical. Because that way it is less likely to touch the wall, and therefore not having the same issues with sticking with the glaze. So now it is perfect in size. You also want to make sure that the inside is nice and smooth, because as I mentioned in the beginning, this one serves as a bowl when you turn it around, and you still want that to look nice. It's still going to be a little more flat than a normal bowl, because otherwise it's going to be very, very high. So it's going to be a sort of a shallow bowl, but you still want that bowl to look nice. The only thing left now is to judge whether or not this the side is too high. And I think actually in this case it's a little bit too high, because that will put the lid very high on the crock. So I think we're going to take off some of it. We can reuse that in a second for the next one. And then we're just going to double check to see that we still have the width. Yeah, it looks perfect. I think we're done with this first lid, but just to be sure, I want to take it off. I have it on a bed, so I just want to see if it looks. I can't put it into the crock because that will, of course, make it stick, but I can still, you know, float it just on top of it. So let's see how that works. So let's see if this will work. Yeah, see, that looks good. That looks very good. Now I've finished the lids for all 5 of the new crocks. I didn't include the trimming in this video because I already did in the past video. So please let me know if you need more details from trimming. But I added the top, trimmed that out so that it sits as a bowl, and I adjusted the size a little bit, and I put my little stamp in here, my maker's mark. It's kind of nice in a way on all of them. And now they have almost dried completely, so I will bisque fire them, and then I will give them basically the same glaze as I did with the first batch, except this time I'm going to glaze my crocks a little bit different than the first couple of times. Because as you remember, I didn't glaze the groove inside here, and that's because I fired the lid on the pot. That's what I've always been told you have to do, because otherwise they will warp and they will not fit after the fire. But then this weekend I attended a workshop with one of Denmark's most experienced potters, Ove Würz. And I saw that he did a lot of lidded jars, and he had the gallery glazed. So I was like, how do you do that? Are you not supposed to fire the lid on the pot? He said, no. Why? Well, because I've always been told that you have to do that. And he was like, no, you don't. He never fires his lids on the pot. He fires them separately, and they fit perfectly. So now I'm going to try what he did. I'm going to glaze the entire pot, not the bottom. I did give it some wax because it needs to stand on the shelves. But I will glaze the groove, and then I glaze the lids. And of course, I didn't glaze the bottom of the lids. I already put them in the kiln, so you can't see them now. But basically, I did the same glazing of the lids except for the bottom, so they can stand on the shelves. But this pot is going to be glazed in the groove, and I'm going to fire them separately. And then I'm going to see how that goes. That'll be interesting. And now the top, and I'm also going to spray the groove I already glazed inside, and I already glazed the bottom, so it's just the top and the groove. So please wish me luck. Another thing that I'm going to do a little bit different with these pots is that I will, like I did the first time, I will add some strokes of my ash glaze. And you can watch the video about how I did this pitfire ash glaze. It looks really good on top of this folk art gilt white. But last time I didn't give it so much because I was afraid that it would be too much and it was too little. So this time I'm going to give it a little bit more, and wish me luck. I think this will look good. It's so difficult to know when you are spraying it on. Is it too much? Is it too little? It's a little more than last time, so I guess it's good. That's it. Now I just have to fire it. And in a couple of days we'll see the result. And of course I will show you how it turns out. So now the kiln is done and it's cooled down. It's below 100 degrees. So it's ready to open and see how it turned out. And that first look when you open the lid is always very interesting. So let's go and take a look. Ah, this is interesting. I definitely got a lot more of that ash glaze, and I think I may have applied the folk art gilt. I don't know if it's too thick, because the thicker it is, the wider it gets. The thinner it is, the more dark it gets. You can see it here in the grooves, but we got all the inside glazed. This is just a bowl with a chemical glaze. So let's see how that turns out. The interesting part, of course, is how it turned out with my lids. So I'll have to remove these pots and see how they turned out, because they're in a lower level. So let's do that. They do look very interesting. A lot more variations of the colors, and the layer of the ash glaze looks nice. It's very different than the first ones that turned out more like in the bottom here. So they're fully glazed in the groove, so it's fine. This is the last layer with all the lids and a few more smaller things. And from the first look, they look like they didn't warp at all. And that's a good sign. And I like how the glaze, I love this glaze, how it turns out. It creates all these variations from dark brown to almost white. So now the interesting part is to see if they actually fit. Let's see if the lid fits. So this is the lid. I didn't glaze it here because it was sitting on the shelf, but I was firing it separately against all the good advice that I usually get. But it fits just as perfectly as it did before I made it. There's absolutely no warping. I think it's a success. I'm very happy with the results. I like how it turned out with the ash glaze on top of the folk art gilt white. I may have given it a little too much of the folk art gilt white because it was maybe too white. I would like a little more brown, but it's very difficult when you spray and to get that thickness correct. But it still looks really good. And there's a lot of variations in the colors, and it sort of still looks almost like it's wood-fired, which of course it isn't. It's electric oxidation. So I really like how that came out. I'm also very happy with the fact that it turned out successful, that you can actually fire lids and pots separately and still have them fit. And you probably, just like me, were told for years that it's not possible, you need to fire them together, and well, sometimes we gotta challenge these ideas about what you can do and what you can't do. And in this case, I was proven wrong. Maybe you were proven wrong too, and everybody was proven wrong. So from now on, you don't need to fire the lids on your pots, at least in this case, and with stoneware. I can't guarantee you it's going to work for all kinds of lids, for all kinds of clay, but in this case, it did. I will, of course, as usual, put some pictures in the end of the video of the finished pots, like studio photos, so it looks a little more, looks better and easier to see the details. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please subscribe. And if you have any questions, ask them, and I'll try and answer the best I can. Please share, comment, subscribe. I hope to see you soon again. Have a good day.